So we're basically, we can talk about pretty much anything y'all want to know about podcasting, like where to store, your information, how to monetize it. Is there anything anybody's like interested in knowing one over the other? Things like that?
Like, is anybody in this room looking to actually podcast and want to know something right now that would help you out? Or are you just curious in general? Or are you just here to hang out with us?
I have a question about. I know that there were some changes to the RSS way they do attachments, and I'm wondering if you guys still use XML RSS to distribute to all the to everywhere with those attachments. If that changed and how that affected you.
Well, we use FeedBurner. We actually use Blogger and FeedBurner because we are cheap and we want to try to do things free.
Right.
And Blogger will basically build your feed for you just because of its kind of blog style. And it has the RSS feed built in, which then FeedBurner can take over and make it how iTunes needs it. So then we give that FeedBurner link to iTunes and anywhere else that people want to use the feed, aggregate it and whatever.
Is FeedBurner free?
FeedBurner is absolutely free. It's part of Google too.
Google. Yeah.
Oh,
so it's just feedburner.google.com, or you can go to feeds.feedburner.com.
Where are you hosting your actual attachments?
We host our files in
MCProHosting.com.
All right.
So we originally got we originally got just a shared hosting plan somewhere when our show wasn't that big, and it got to where we're basically bringing down the shared server, and so they were upset. Even though it was like you see these unlimited bandwidth, unlimited whatever plans. Well, they all have language in their contracts that are basically, if the CPU cycles get too heavy, we have the right to basically turn it off. And so they did that when we had Notch on the show.
It took it down. We got kicked off. It was like everybody was angry at us and everything because it was a crap load of bandwidth. And that's when we moved. So like all of our episodes that are 101 and more or later is on MC Pro Hosting. And everything old is still on the other server, so.
What is that cost on a monthly basis?
For the hosting, you can get if when we in the beginning we had like a plan that was like $100 a year, but we used a coupon that was $50 a year. So you can kind of understand how they were like, wow, they're doing all this traffic. I mean, we're doing 80 gigs, I think, of traffic a month at the time. And bring down their servers, so you can understand why they were unhappy. But they wanted about $2,000 a year for us to handle what we were doing, and we couldn't do that. And we reached out to the community on Twitter, and MC Pro Hosting said, "Hey, we'll not only do that, but give you Minecraft servers as well, and do all this other stuff." So we moved there. Like I think if anybody gets to a point where they're bringing down shared hosting servers, they will have someone who will be glad to kind of in exchange for promoting their service to host. So I would look for that.
And to put it in perspective space-wise, every episode is on average about 60 megs to 75 megs, something like that. If it runs over 2 hours, then it'll be about 80 to 85 megabytes, and that's per episode. So
MP3?
Yeah, and it's MP3. So if you could imagine doing a podcast, if you are going to do a podcast for years, then make sure that you have enough space for about 200 files that could be about 60 to 80, megs a piece. So in 2 years, that'd be like, in 2 years you'd be on episode 200. It's like
well, but
50.
we also, I think our quality on what we saved MP3 out is a little bit higher than you actually, like we don't just do voice, it's stereo.
Yeah, it's stereo. Yeah, it used to be mono. And it used to be more compressed, and over the years, as bandwidth got cheaper and we got lucky and just found like good deals and stuff, I started kind of being more loose, and right now it's 128 kilobits per second, which is the bit rate, and then it's stereo now, which doubles the file size because there's 2 channels. But it just sounds a lot better, like the bumpers, the intros and outros just sound better because they're in stereo. Our voices are still in mono though, they get mixed. They get flattened. So well, our voices are never going to be in stereo. Although I've heard podcasts where, they'll put like one guy on the left channel, one guy on the right channel. So when you listen to it, you always know who's talking, even if you don't know the difference between their voices.
And then when there's three of us, we just mute Wes out.
Yeah, it's like, what do we do with the third person? I think that's a cool idea, but I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, it's just kind of weird sometimes, like hearing voices in ears. Ooh.
We just don't respond to them.
Yeah.
You're okay. Anybody have a question?
When you're doing your podcast, I mean, you're obviously, if you load it up to iTunes, I mean, are you still responsible for bandwidth on that end as well, or?
It comes from the same place. So they just, basically, anyone can link to a podcast now. Like they don't, you just sign into iTunes and then put in the feed. So if you know like someone who has a podcast but didn't submit it to iTunes and you wanted it to iTunes, you can actually submit it yourself. And it just points to their files wherever they have them stored.
Okay, so it's just a redirect.
Yeah, so it pretty much all comes from the same place, no matter where, if it's on whatever Zoom's new market is, or I guess that's Xbox.
What about stats? Does that come from FeedBurner?
We actually do stats in multiple places, because stats for podcasting is horrible. I mean, it's so horrible to try to figure out what your actual numbers and downloads are, because of how there's so many different aggregators out there, and they all kind of grab the file in different ways. Some of them, grab it in piecemeal and come back and get pieces later and do this. So there's different services like FeedBurner, basically has stats. We use one called PodTrack that you basically sign into PodTrack, and they give you a link to put on the front end of your files, and then they can track it that way. So we get stats for that, and then we have our own server stats where we see the actual downloads, and it's completely different from one to the other. So it's really hard to get actual stats. Like we'll have an episode that says it was downloaded 1 million times through like raw stats and stuff, that one of these will tell us that it's 250,000. So I mean, it's that big of a difference. So it's really hard to like know what your true numbers are. That was one thing I was hoping Chad from TWIP, he's here.
Oh, right.
I was going to ask him how they do their stats. Didn't he
Right.
get like a reliable stats? So.
It's like if you're looking at the raw hits, it's basically you're looking at the HTTP GET, that MP3 on the server. So if you look up a log and see that, it not only do you see how many times the GET was issued, but you also get to see how many megs were downloaded. And if it was streamed on somebody's device and they only listened to the first 20 minutes, then they only downloaded 15 megs of that MP3. So the stats are all crazy at that point, because now you have like retention. Like how much of this episode was actually listened to, which is useful. But I think a lot of sponsors and people don't look at that and don't trust it. They'll go with like PodTrack and stuff like that, because it's a company that deals with stats. So they're like, let me see your PodTrack numbers. I don't care about all these other numbers.
Yeah. And then even between PodTrack and FeedBurner, like they both basically have their formulas where they think they know, say how many times iTunes is going to hit it, how many times Lemon Pod or whatever that one is going to hit it. So they think they know how to calculate the stats. But even between PodTrack and FeedBurner, they will be drastically different. I mean, we're talking tens to 50,000 different. So it's kind of a crapshoot to know how many people are actually listening.
Is there any new technology for actual things besides RSS for distribution?
I don't know. Like I look into things very rarely to see if we can host the files in a way. Like I was trying to get a feed from YouTube to see if we could do our videos on YouTube and basically build a feed from that to like go completely free storage. Like that's how cheap I am.
Right, just
Just
scrape off the MP3 with some sort of script and.
But there's some weird things that iTunes did last year, I think, where how you store your actual files, the server has to be able to do it in a variable way, like that has to be so that it can send it in pieces and not just chunks. And some servers aren't built to do that, and some hosts don't do that. You actually have to ask them to like give you a server that does that. YouTube doesn't do that for their files, so we couldn't do that do it. But they may one day, and so that would be a way to do it. I was trying to see if we could do it like maybe through SoundCloud or something like that. Some kind of other way to get some other feedback about the file. Like SoundCloud would be great. People, like, you could see what segments people liked in your show. So we're actually thinking about
Their
putting them up
stats
there
are
just
pretty
for that.
impressive.
They are, yeah. You have to pay for them.
Yeah,
But they're good.
I'm a subscriber. It's been very worth it for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do the cheap version, the $30 a year. Or something.
Right. Yeah. That's. But I mean that's their focus has been podcasting at first, but and spoken word, and I think that music kind of took over there. But
Right.
I think it was really actually kind of more intended for that.
Yeah, there's another service called Libsyn, and they're supposed to be kind of built for podcasters. We've always kind of looked at them, but kind of how you look at their stuff, like it seems like it should not cost more, or if you grow, it seems like it's supposed to stay the same amount. But the wording of all their stuff is so weird. We've never actually tried them out.
Right.
But I think they actually have a technology where they can insert ads and stuff that you can pay for to do almost like a like a Google AdWords.
Google has that too.
Audio or something. So like right now we use affiliates. We don't use any other advertising besides websites.
Google has a system like that for radio. I've done networks for radio stations, and that Google has an ad system that you sell ads for Google or you can sell ads for just your station, and then anything you don't fill, Google will pay you to put some ads in there.
Oh, cool.
So you always have ads. It's like a
Right.
Google, or you could just go pure Google ads and just make the revenue from that.
That's true. Yeah.
So I would assume they would want into that market too. Just switching gears to what kind of hardware do you guys actually record the podcast on?
Oh yeah, hardware. our fun boxes. So we use mainly hardware instead of software. So we record straight to a solid state recorder that it's compact flash, right? It's like the big one, like the old one, right?
Yeah. About the size of a matchbook.
Yeah.
Compact flash.
So we record to that. It's a Tascam. It's like a rack mountable recorder. It's pretty much all it does is records and plays back, any signal. And then we have a mixer. We have a 2-channel compressor that is also a limiter and a gate and an expander.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. It's all in one box. Alesis makes it. So we have the settings all nice and tweaked out, and then we just leave it. Sometimes I'll adjust a gate here and there, but we have a 2-channel EQ. It's been sitting in the rack for years, and we've never used it. The purpose of it was going to be, it's 2 channels, so it's basically everything in studio goes through the left channel of this EQ, so I could get it sounding right and sounding good. And then the other channel was for Skype, because Skype always sounds, not terrible, but different than the studio environment. So yeah, so we were gonna EQ that one separately and try to match us, but I don't know why. Like we haven't hooked it up or something.
Yeah, I don't know why.
But the 2-channel compressor's nice because now I can compress and limit the signal from Skype, and then get all of us on the same. So that way, not everybody has to have the same settings, because there's no magic settings. It's going to sound good across the board or anything. So, and then sometimes if we have the air conditioner on in the studio, then I'll adjust some of the settings on the gate or the threshold on the compressor. I'll adjust that. So it depends on like what it sounds like before we start the show, and I'll sit there and I'm like, get it all sounding good.
And then on the other side, we're also at the same time recording in, basically Twitch has a recording because we're streaming out, so it's kind of a backup. We want to have backups every time we record in case we forget to record, like I did last week.
That's
So, then also we record an XSplit at the same time as we're streaming out. So we basically have 3 like fail-safes. So we're going to have the audio, hopefully, unless all 3 crap out. If we're streaming out, we've got the audio. So it's fail-safe.
Yeah. think that's it, hardware-wise.
We actually just switched our streamer, XSplits and Skype and all that going. Apparently doesn't work well on an i5 with only 2 gig of RAM.
Yeah.
So,
You can barely run Windows.
and it was crashing all the time. So finally we upgraded to like a quad core with 20 gig RAM system, and we haven't really had any problems since then.
Yeah.
What kind of microphones and such do you use? I mean, are they
We use
specific?
Heil fins. We actually just upgraded. For 6 years we used
Mexel B120.
63M.
Oh, 63M.
63Ms,
The
which were
condensers.
$80 mics you can get on Amazon, and usually you can find a deal that they throw in the shock mounts. Great sounding, great for studio voice work. The new ones we got, they're really pretty. And
They're chrome and they have
sound
LEDs
really good.
inside, so they glow, a certain color, like you can buy them in different colors and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of gimmicky, but like, they're good mics.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
They have-
Heil,
They also have the pop screen built in to the microphone, and since we were streaming and going to video, we were trying to keep these big pop screens out of our face. So we kind of went with that. The pop screens aren't as good as like if you use one that you keep an inch or two away from the mic, but they do the trick if you use them right. They sound good. They weren't horribly expensive compared to like the $500 range mics. They're about $200, I think.
Yeah.
But we still use our old swing arm kind of things. We got some new mic stands, but they have table noise too much, and we're typing a lot, so that goes through the mic stands because they're on the table. So that's one thing if you're looking to podcast and you think you'll be typing or something, get an arm, and if you can get it attached to not that table, that's even better. Because then the sound won't travel through to the microphone, and then having a shock mount will even help that even more, which the new ones don't have. But
We have a couple of these handheld, like Shure SM53s or something. This is Samson, but we have a few of these laying around for guests because we're like, hey, you can come by the studio and hang out. So we have just a couple of little stands and a few of these thrown into the mixer. So if somebody comes in, also, hardware-wise, we also have a headphone distributor, which is basically just everybody has their own volume knob and headphone output. It's like 10 channel?
yeah,
Something
but
like that.
they're all the headphone things we've ever used they will have X amount of slots, but once you start filling it up, you go to those last slots, it just starts sounding crappy. For whatever reason, the distribution of the audio, they like to tell you it has 10 channels, but we use like 6 at most.
Yeah, apparently each channel needs its own amplifier.
Yeah.
So it gets, it just gets weakened, the signal gets weakened. So the more expensive ones, sure, but we paid $100 for ours. And it works fine because we only really ever have like 4 headphones at any time. I mean 3 usually, but 4 like if there's a guest. So, so you can get by with a cheapie.
Any other questions?
Kind of off the topic of podcast, but still with the equipment and stuff like that. So I've always been curious just because I deal a lot with sound. But do you guys, when you record your YouTube stuff, record your audio tracks separately with your own equipment from your video and then just sing it together in post-production? Or is it all in one file?
Usually it's all in one file. So sometimes, a lot of times we try to do it in the studio. So then we're recording to the hard disk recorder to get the best audio. When we do it from home, we're Skyping in, and Eric's recording it at his house, so it's just coming through Skype. These days it'd be easier, I guess, to transfer the audio back and forth to each other, but usually we're recording video too, and so it's a little bigger. It's just faster, and really the difference between the sound quality isn't drastically enough to make it worthwhile to deal with that syncing and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a good idea to isolate each track. I mean, just so you can get fancy with it or whatever, but
Because I know you do a lot of post-production, make it sound like you're underwater and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering, do you do it all in post? Or,
Oh yeah. All of those post effects
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So anyway, like you said, like when we're in the studio, we're doing, a Minecraft adventure or something. we will fraps the audio and we will record it separately to the audio through the board, because what we're hearing through our headphones is the product of going through all of our hardware. So we can hear what, I'll make what we hear sound great. So we know that our backup recording is going to be like awesome. It's like, what is fraps going to sound like? Sometimes it sounds awesome. Sometimes it's weird, but we don't know because we're not listening to that output. It's a surprise later. Like, oh, it sounds like crap. Well, that's all right, because I just, already recorded the good studio, stuff anyway. So it's kind of cool having a backup at least.
What do you guys use for all your bumpers?
To play them?
Yeah.
We actually use an iPad app called Resounder, and it's really kind of cool. You can, it's got some built-in sounds, but you can basically set it on this mode where it will give you an IP address that if you're on the same Wi-Fi or the same network, that you can just log in and upload files to it. So, and you can record straight to it. So, there's a bunch of ways to get the different sounds in there, and you can keep different boards. And I think you can put like 128 sounds in each board. And it'll just be named like whatever the title of the track is, so you can, see what it is, and then press it and it plays.
And there's this stop button, real big red stop button. So in case like you hit some long 30-second clip, at least you can stop it. But the one I had, it only would play one at a time. But like yours, the Resounder, if you sit there and hit all the buttons, it'd be like, everything's going all at once, cows and sheep and crap,
Doesn't that sound awesome?
I like that. And then the stop button,
It's all stopped. Gang, quiet. Quiet. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah.
You.
At what point is a good point to where you can start approaching, getting ads and things like that? At what viewership or something?
Really, there's some you can do without, no matter what numbers you have. So it's kind of once you feel like it's okay to put it in, like when we had 10 people listening to us, it wasn't like, it kind of detracted from the quality to throw in an ad, right? So it was kind of, until we got to a point where like we got enough people that, okay, I think it's okay to throw in an ad, and then enough people, okay, 2 ads. So I think it's really more when you feel safe. There are points where we would go seeking affiliates, and then there were points where affiliates came to us. And I would say when we were getting to about 200,000 downloads an episode was when people started coming to us asking to put an affiliate on there. Now the thing we tried to do, because like affiliates are so hard, because it's, a lot of people listen to our stuff in cars. And so they've got to remember, well, okay, when I get home, I've got to go netflix.com/this, And if they get it wrong by any letter, it's still going to go to Netflix. And Netflix is they're going to have no clue that they got it wrong. And Netflix is going to get an order, and we won't see anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we work with them to try to get like a /DeadWorkers or something that makes sense, that's easy to remember, but also something that's an extra deal if we can, so it's not just any affiliate, so they have a reason to use our affiliate over someone else's. So like we started doing one with Engine, who does our hosting. Instead of getting 2 weeks free for signing up, we got them to give them a full month to try, so things like that. We try to get stuff to give away. Because we kind of want to let people see a little bit of the product too. Like we like the free month stuff, because that gives, even if you don't want to stay with the service, it gives you a reason to try it out and have fun for free. So that's good stuff.
Also, I'd say like if your podcast is near the top of the charts on iTunes, it's probably ready to get sponsors. Because you can show them that. They'll be like, oh dude, you're like on the top charts. It's okay, of course, Also, affiliates wise, you don't need anybody's permission really. Well, I guess you do have to work a deal, but
But there's some affiliates you don't.
Yeah,
you can find affiliates where you give like a tracking number. We don't like those just because the tracking number is so hard to, like, no one's going to remember that, and you'd have to say go to this link, and we'd have to make a deadworkers.com/something instead of Netflix. Oh, come on in.
He's like, I thought that was the bathroom.
Yeah, but and affiliates range in all types. You know, you can got some that are percentages, like, and I mean, I can kind of go down the list of like what we have. We have Loot Crate. We give our customers $3 off for their service, and we get $5 for every person that signs up for Loot Crate through us. Netflix, for anyone who tries the free month, they pay $15. No, that's Audible. Audible pays $15. Netflix actually pays $35 for every person that signs up, but it's so hard to get someone to sign up to Netflix now because everybody signed up to Netflix already.
Yeah. And that one is the one that you don't necessarily get a special deal through us, right?
Yeah,
because you
we're not big enough for that.
Yeah,
right?
so you can already get a free trial, so it doesn't matter. So it's really like the kind is like if you're cool and you put in our URL, you know, that's awesome. But at least with Audible, we give you a free book and a free, you know, all this and that. You know, you get 2 free credits and all that. So, and you don't necessarily get that if you just go to audible.com and sign. So always like it when we get to give away a perk, you know.
Yeah. And you know, we do a lot of gaming podcasts, so it's not necessarily affiliate or sponsors, but we try to get in touch with the gaming companies that run the games as soon as possible. And I mean, this is when we're talking like our numbers say we had 100 listeners to the show, right? And they were already willing to talk to us because we were something in their community. And depending on the game, some reach out more than others at that point. And they would already start giving us like things to give away, which helped us because then people who'd never heard of the show, we can post on Reddit, hey, we're giving away this, and they'll come listen to the show. Grows our audience, gets them looking good. And so you can do that day one. Like I would say day one in any podcast someone's doing, start reaching out to people. When we were doing Control Point and Nation of Gamers, which were much smaller shows, I mean, every day I was contacting someone just to try to get some kind of promotion or sponsorship to give away. A lot of people won't return your calls, but you know, 1 out of 100. It's like dating, right? 1 out of 100, they're going to say yes and give you something stupid that you can give away. And it's a lot of fun. And I like that. I think that's fun.
Any podcasting horror stories?
Horror stories? I mean, I think one of the worst things that can happen is you forget to record because, I mean, that's what you're there to do, you know, and you've just failed completely at that point, you know. Now you have to redo it, and it's not going to be the same. Sometimes it might be better, but it's usually not. I don't know.
Has it ever happened?
Oh yeah. It'll always happen. It'll happen again.
Have we ever not had an episode go out because it wasn't recorded, though?
Yeah.
I can't think of one that was actually. I
mean,
always seem
now,
to have
like,
a backup of some sort.
Yeah, well, it was before we even had backup systems. That's why we have backup systems now. It was World of WoW. There's a few of those we just completely said, screw it. Next week we'll do a show. We don't want to do this one again. And,
That's true.
Or I think we might have actually redone one once, maybe in Lawson. Done it a third time. We're like, God, we're sick of this. But you know, and that's horrible. But now we have so many redundant things. I mean, but technically, like, so we record the audio on a card, and then we record the video, which is also the audio on XSplit, and then Twitch is recording it on their hard drive in some other state somewhere, which is also the audio and the video.
And then at
So,
this
like,
point, I think we actually have a couple fans who are like recording. That if we said, "Dude, we missed the episode," that they'd be like, "Don't worry, I recorded it."
Yeah.
While y'all were streaming.
They like
it.
screen capture the
Like,
Twitch or something. So it's hard to not to forget. Like, well, okay.
Don't
so
we forget last week?
You hadn't recorded the video from XSplit, but that's okay. So I downloaded all the flash files from Twitch that automatically records anything you stream, you know. So I downloaded all these FLVs, converted them, took the audio that I already had, pushed them together, so everything was fine. 720p. I mean, it didn't look any worse or anything. I mean, slightly worse, but it's just dudes' faces talking. I mean, nobody cares. I think that much. So
Yeah, without too much movement.
yeah, no, I'm moving. So.
Yes, that was my fault.
No,
Sorry. We just changed our setup to where Eric's just doing the audio and I'm doing the video to try to separate and get us talking more in some.
Yeah. So I'm the butt masher.
How long have you guys been podcasting, and how many different shows have you had?
So
Someone just actually tweeted they listened to World of WoW 7 years ago.
yeah, 7 years ago. So 2006 is when we started, or 2005.
2005.
Okay,
But
so
we were doing, we started DeadWorkersParty,
DeadWorkers Podcast.
DeadWorkers Podcast,
It's
which
still
was,
DWP, right? So DeadWorkers Podcast was,
it was horrible.
well, it was horrible, but it was about filmmaking, and it was about all the aspects of filmmaking that we're still figuring out as a company. So we didn't really know what we were talking about. It was more like, listen to us try to figure out filmmaking, right?
It's kind of like us trying to play Smite with the new Smite podcast, but on filmmaking.
Yeah, because it was
Right.
2005.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're noobs. So it was 2005 that we were incorporated. Like we incorporated that year, right? So
that was,
you know, we were getting like some filmmaking gigs and stuff like that, and being a company, and podcasting seemed like the thing to do because me and Brent listened to talk radio and stuff like that.
yeah, I mean,
Back in like XM radio, I guess XM's still around. But anyway, so and then in 2006, that's when we just started doing gaming. From then on, it was just like, okay, we're gonna do a show about WoW.
so we started off with Dead Workers Podcast, then we did World of WoW, which was a Warcraft podcast. Then we switched to
And then
Control
it
Point.
kind of exploded. Oh yeah, Control Point.
The Control Point after that, which was a Team Fortress 2 podcast. Then we did Safe House,
Safe
which
House.
was a Left 4 Dead podcast.
Daily Gamer. Yeah,
Daily Gamer.
that was excellent.
Nation of Gamers.
Yeah,
Core Elements.
Hunting for Health.
Honey for Health, and then Eat Smart for Life.
Yeah.
2 different ones. And then The Shaft.
Yeah.
And
And On
DeadWorkersParty
Smite.
on Smite.
So that's
We're
our newest
actually,
one.
we kind of learned through this whole time too that like we want to promote Dead Workers Party as the entity and people know us as Dead Workers Party. And we found with Minecraft that we were being known as those Shaft guys, you know, the Shaft guys, and not Dead Workers, right? We weren't the Dead Workers, we were the Shaft guys. And so with all of our future podcasts, we're planning to do like Dead Workers Party on whatever subject it is.
That
to
way we
try
can be
to-
the Dead Workers Party guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's way simpler because what happens when the shaft goes away? I don't want it to go away, of course. I mean, this is actually the longest running podcast we've ever done,
Yeah.
which is great. But, you know, whenever it goes away, it'll be like, you know, all the references of those shaft guys is just lost in the wind, you know? Forever. Questions?
Speaking of, the shaft, about how geez, can't even work now. Get back to me on that.
Okay. Spins off.
Which podcast had the fewest episodes?
Safe
House.
Safe
Right.
Wasn't it like 10?
It was
Yeah,
probably
no,
under
maybe.
6 to 10. It was.
And
it
like,
was
I
kind of a
wasn't-
travesty. It actually had good numbers for how crappy it was. It's
People begged you guys to bring it back, so I wasn't on it because I don't even remember. Like I didn't really play Left 4 Dead, I think, and I didn't want to pretend.
weren't you on some of them? No, you were doing Fallout.
Clyde Frog,
You were doing the Fallout. But Clyde Frog and well, there was
Boomrocker.
basically this was a podcast that was all Skype. I was the only person locally that was on it, and so it was much harder to get people together. Like to find the time to record and do it. And when we do podcasts, one of the biggest things we found out is it needs to be timely. Like you need to do it every week. You don't do it every week and it just people fade out and don't come back and listen because they don't realize it's there from their feed and everything. So this podcast, it was like happened like once every 3 weeks. You know, it's some weird, bizarre. It just wasn't happening every week, so we basically said screw it. Good luck.
How do you monetize something like that? How do you make money?
Affiliates is about it that we've tried. We've tried going direct marketing, like going in and talking to companies and saying, hey, we've got this many listeners every week. Pay us money. It doesn't work. It's kind of too new, I think, and that's one reason I want to chat here too, because they make millions a year off podcasting and have a huge.
They get like Ford and stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, they still do affiliates mostly though.
Oh, yeah.
They'll still have a like.
Visa.
Yeah, but it still seems like affiliates work out because they do Audible and things like that as well. So I think it's just that it hasn't gotten there yet. Like companies don't trust podcast numbers and things because I think that's the accounting isn't there, so it's like
Easy to forge, maybe.
Yeah.
Until there's like a centralized location where all the stats are, probably won't get there.
Well, that's why I say go to iTunes. It's like you can't forge that. It's like, oh, we're top 3 game and hobby podcasts. It's like, well, that's not fake. I mean, obviously, right? I mean,
But it
so
doesn't show the
then the
numbers.
sponsor.
right.
Yeah.
You could be in the most obscure podcasting section, flower arrangement
Right.
podcast, and say you have 3 listeners. I'm the top podcast in my section.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's hard.
How much longer do you think the Shaft will run?
I gave it 1,000 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
You said you'd give them like $500 if it made it to the 1,000th episode.
That's right. You said that, right? Brent
Yes,
said that?
he said it.
We're still waiting for the radio play.
Yeah.
Yes.
We would love to
Oh, yeah.
do those. We
Yeah.
did with Control Point. We did 2 radio plays at 50 and 100, but they were like
And
months of work. I mean, it just
Oh yeah, it was a big production.
just
It was
writing
so much
the
fun though.
scripts, recording the script, mastering the script or the audio files once those
All
are
the music
done.
and stuff.
We really want to do it. We're actually, we've talked about even taking Control Point 50 and 100 and getting map makers from Minecraft to basically build adventure
Make it
map
live
around it.
action, or make it.
And then us act it out, and so then we just throw the audio behind it, and you have a visual version of
Maybe
it.
It'd be hard to time it
We need like a
out.
fourth
Yeah,
guy
I don't
now,
know.
like
You have to
he's
redo
like some
Yeah, Spencer would.
Who? What?
Yeah,
I
Spencer
don't know
would.
who that is.
Oh, it's
No.
different Spencer.
Yeah. What are the thoughts of nooks and crannies?
What are the differences?
Yeah.
See, a nook is indoors. So you have all kinds of nooks all up in here. And then you go outside for your crannies. You lose all kinds of crannies outside. Even in outer space, there's crannies. So, nooks and crannies.
That's-
Don't get them mixed up.
Fascinating.
That's an inside joke there.
Yeah,
He's a listener. We know he listens to
That's almost as bad as the Indian.
The chief.
the chief. Yeah, and the soul nets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
now
going
it's
downhill quickly.
it is. Did anybody make a train track sound? Have we covered everything about podcasting? File storage, file monetizing.
So
It's not
all
a
of our
subject matter.
yeah, I was
So-
gonna go into like explicit or non-explicit. We go with
You got a
non-explicit.
I was gonna ask like, how you, because I noticed all your podcasts kind of have like, you start out, then you kind of do like what you did this week, then you kind of have like your news segment, then you have like your meat, and then you kind of move on there. How did you, because like a lot of other podcasts, like even radio shows and things like that, they have lots of different formatting of like their segments. So how did you come up with the one you use?
The shaft was more of, I think you came up with most of the bumpers, and that kind of built the segments because the bumpers were still funny and we like those. But we basically sit around and send an email around if we're not talking at the time and figure out
Like segment
just like what we
ideas.
think people would be interested in hearing about, what we think we can get feedback from. Because I think a big thing in growing a podcast is making your listener, not making, but getting your listener involved. And if we can read out their ideas, and like Excavation Station is a good example. I think when people feel like they're involved, they tend to come back and listen more, and they want to be part of the community and are part of the community. And I think it's a nice cycle. We get to meet a lot of cool people as part of that. So community involvement is a big thing, I think, in really anything on the internet. not just podcasting, but we focus big time on that.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool to like, meet people that listen to your show, and then game with them. I mean, that's how I met a lot of people here in this room right now. Is just like I keep seeing your name pop up in the chat room, so now your name's kind of in my head, or tweet to me a bunch of times or whatever. So now I know about the name, and then like if I hear about anyway, it's just more and more kind of creeps up, and then all of a sudden we're hanging out on Skype playing Smite or playing whatever together, and it's just like.
Or someone
I
shows
love
up at your
that.
house, hi, I'm your stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric wants that. Show up at Eric's house.
They'll wake up under my bed. Using my.
You were snoring last
Yeah.
night.
Had to sleep down there.
Do you have any advice on promoting your content?
Promoting it. Man, we kind of suck at this, actually. We're trying to get better at it, but Twitter, Reddit's a big one. If you're talking about a subject, there's a Reddit for that subject, probably. Get involved with that Reddit. Like, don't go spam, but get involved and really find the communities that are already talking about the subject that you're talking about, and let them know that you're talking about it, and see how they can get involved with it. Get involved with the community around whatever subject you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe like hit on other people's podcasts as guests. I mean, not that we do that, but it would be a good idea.
That would be a good
Spread
idea.
the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you were saying about content?
Oh yeah, content. Like we've tried like general gaming podcasts before, and it seems like audience for at least podcasts seem to want a narrow focus. So like I would suggest that if you're thinking about starting a podcast, and to make it as focused to the subject as you can, like don't make it abroad about a bunch of stuff, because it just seems like, like if you're talking about 5 games and somebody likes one of those games, well now you've got, the rest of the podcast you're talking about stuff they could care less about. That's what we've been trying to do with all of our new shows, is focus in on a certain thing.
Yeah. We want to do a general one just because it's been years and years and years since we've attempted it. We don't really expect to get a lot of numbers or anything, but it's kind of like we just want to do it and hang out and talk and
Do it for yourself?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It still might happen. It'd be
How
probably
about
just
general
like
gaming? Like,
no. This would be like kind of just
more like
culture nerd
yeah,
stuff, like
just
TV shows, movies, and just what I don't know. Junk we're recent doing. I don't know. That's interesting.
Since OnSmite's been like the first podcast you've done since the Shaft, like what are your numbers for OnSmite?
oh, they're horrible.
Yeah, they're pretty low.
They're horrible.
It's because the community's not that big, right? For that game.
We probably, if the game had been released fully and wasn't still in beta, we probably would have stopped the podcast at episode 10. Because how we're trying to do the new stuff is to give it a 10 episode kind of pilot season and see if enough people like it. And the only reason we're keeping on with Smite right now is A, we love the game so much, and it's still enjoyable for us to talk about it, and it's still in beta, so we're gonna wait till it's out of beta, and then really we'll probably keep doing it till our focus shifts to a different game.
Yeah, we talk about Smite nonstop all the time, and that's when we're just like, dude, we have to do a show about this because we're wasting the gold, and that's another term we use. It's like we'll show up at the studio. And Wes comes in, he's like, dude, man, I'm so mad at Artemis. I'm like, hey, save the gold. You're wasting it on me right now, all right? You got one listener. Let's get a couple of So, like, sit him down, and we're like, man, last night, I'm like going in on Neath, and Brent's like, shh. I'm like, oh, it's just seeping out. Like, we want to talk,
So you're going down on me?
That's what he said.
Is that what it said?
Yeah. But I mean, numbers-wise, we're talking probably.
I'm wasting the gold right now. I'll say that for the next episode.
But like number-wise, we're probably talking about 1,000 subs.
I've heard some people in game talking about it and stuff, and it seems to be pretty positive.
Yeah.
About the game?
Yeah, well, no, about the podcast.
Oh.
They're pretty excited to have a podcast about the game.
Oh, right.
And that's the other thing is, they're really interested. Like their community manager emails me every week with like, this is what's going on and here's some codes to give out.
Well, the game itself lends itself to, they're really trying to be a community. I mean, there's live streaming built into the game. You don't need XSplit, you don't need anything. It's literally, you click a button that says live stream this game if you have a Twitch account.
Yeah.
And podcast is like the only other thing besides live streaming that you really do instantly.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to get him to do is put us in the game.
We'll be there soon.
Just get your skin on
On Hades,
the
like get our logo.
the wine god, the Greek
Oh
wine
yeah,
god.
What made y'all decide to do this? I mean, did y'all sit around and you're shooting the shit every week and you're just like,
It was actually from because we were listening to like This Week in Tech and other podcasts, and we're like, oh, we can do this. We talk a lot. And our first podcast, well, we got on another show. It was on filmmaking stuff. And our first podcast we recorded on, I was holding a laptop with like headphones coming out, and some little microphone coming out, and like it was on a like workout bench.
It was taped to it.
Just
It's like dangling there, you know.
Or just setup you can imagine. The only other setup I can think worse than that was when we recorded an episode in the middle of a parking lot on an iPhone. So I mean, you can do this on anything.
That's right.
And
What show is that?
that was
The Shamrock parking lot.
the Shamrock parking
Cast.
lot in Cast. I think that's on.
It's somewhere.
It's online.
It's
somewhere.
one episode.
And we were at E3.
It was like an hour long too, or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was that
It was
E3
riveting.
when I was down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys?
Yeah, in California, yeah.
Yeah.
In LA somewhere.
So you can record it on anything, is what we're saying. It's just,
Don't expect good quality, but you can record.
Yeah.
And I thought
We had a
that was
big
pretty
echoey room for a while. Like the first
Yeah.
room we recorded in, it had carpet, nothing on the walls.
I've seen that picture of you with this mattress mat behind you.
Yeah. Finally, we're looking through the house, but what can we put on the walls? You know, we found like the mattress pad. That'll totally work. You know.
Yeah.
After a while, we bought professional acoustic foam and stuff like that. But
Ripped
I mean,
up his walls.
this room sounds great. You know, wood soaks up waves pretty good. So. Yeah, it was horrible to start with, but you have to start somewhere, and I think it kept it worse, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing with the content thing is, and you kind of hit on it, is make sure you're talking about something you enjoy. I mean, there's nothing like if you're planning to do something every week for years to like not enjoy it. Like we still love Minecraft, and I really don't like we enjoyed Team Fortress 2. But we got to a point where we weren't playing it weekly or really even monthly. And we ended up quitting that show because it was like, this isn't really fair to us or the audience, really. It's like, we're sitting here just basically talking about what we can find on the internet and no in-game experience. And it was like pulling teeth to like log in and actually play the game.
Well, yeah, it's the whole segment. Like, so Brent, what'd you do this week? Or hey, Wes, what'd you?
I played Conan.
Yeah, and if we're talking about a different game, then yeah, it's probably time to hang this one up.
Yeah. So you'll know when the end's coming for the Shaft for sure. Because we'll be talking about
Other games.
and not
Right.
Maybe WildStar. That might be our next gaming podcast. That's a new
It's-
MMO coming out. It's not even in beta yet, so we don't know if it's good or not.
Yeah. But also the bandwidth. Like right now we have bandwidth for basically 2 shows. If we ever get to where we can do this full time, well, our bandwidth all suddenly grows and we'll be doing 5, 10 shows.
Yeah.
Because we definitely love podcasting as much as making videos. But we're running low on time here. We got
3
more
minutes.
questions.
Just, have you ever considered, since, especially the Shaft, you have a lot of community stuff, stuff from see this video, see this article, see this, etc. Have you ever considered converting to MP4s instead of the MP3 and putting it all into the show notes at the end and having you go to the website?
Well, we usually try to, you mean like the video?
Like adding in the pictures and stuff like that into the actual, so it comes up on your iPod as it's playing.
I know what you're talking about, and that's a lot of trouble. Like it would just add so much time to post. Plus, I don't know how
That's the
many people would-
bandwidth. I mean,
Yeah.
if we got to a point where we could either pay someone to do that for us, because honestly, that's not something we would enjoy doing.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like right now, you kind of get paid by enjoying it enough to do it for free, or you know. So if basically we got to the point where we could pay someone to do something like that, that'd be awesome. I mean, that's just makes your feed that much better.
Yeah.
But I doubt even if we had the time to do it, that we would do it ourselves. Honestly.
Yeah. But it's cool. Yeah, extra polish is always cool. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks you everyone for showing up. You know what?
One thing I wanted to come to this week.
Learn something.
Been running the con suite all weekend. So do something.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the questions. We suck at planning.